I often look back at music and movies I was into as a youth, and to be honest, most of the bands I've covered in my What the Fuck Happened to series, I wasn't too keen on, if that wasn't obvious. So I decided this time around, I'd focus on a group that I did really like at the time. One that surprised me when I decided to check up on them. As with many other bands, Godhead kinda came and went as far as my own journey into music. Or whatever. All of which was at that sweet spot in impressionable youths where things like a produced by Marilyn Manson sticker on a CD meant goofs just like me were gonna snatch it up. But where all the early 2000s cheese and cliches stopped, some pretty damn interesting music was made here in my opinion. And they definitely can't be accused of being redundant. So subscribe, then hit that little notification bell. And if you're not a bald dude with a beard, stop watching right now, as the rest of us find out what the fuck happened to Godhead. The origins of the group go back to 1994 when they went by Blind, but luckily they changed it to Godhead and remain active in the scene, releasing a few independent releases. Among them being the ahead of its time Power Tool Stigmata in 1998. Marilyn Manson wound up producing the band's breakthrough album in 2001, the album 2000 Years of Human Error. Manson also appeared on a track, as did Twiggy and Daisy, and to date, the album has sold over 100,000 copies in the United States alone. This was the album I think everyone remembers them from, if they indeed remember them at all. They did a cover of the Beatles' Eleanor Rigby and got a lot of airplay on MTV, even landing a spot on Ozfest. My personal favorite track from the album being Sinking. There would also be a few songs in some high-profile film soundtracks as well. In 2003, the band would essentially retool some new members, and basically the lineup remained the same until the end, featuring famed guitarist Mike Miller and bassist and programmer Method. And that same year in 2003, they would release Evolver, which would see the group grow with their sound and add a lot more melodic elements. The album would feature guests like Reeve Gabriel from The Cure and Wayne Static. After that, the group pulled a fast one and put out an all-cover album in 2004 entitled Non-Stop Ride, covering tracks from Zeromancer, Pigface, Sig Sig Sputnik, and more. Then 2 years later, in 2006, the band released The Shadow Line, which reunited the group with their original drummer. However, in true Godhead fashion, he bailed as soon as the album was done being recorded. And though the album had 3 singles and a solid tour behind it, well, nothing much came of it. 2007 would see the release of their Live Unplugged EP, which was recorded while they were on tour with Jonathan Davis. And here, we get some fantastic renditions and a look into the future of their more acoustic stylings that were to come from Jason Miller. This one was always one of my favorites from the group. In 2008, the band will release what I think is their most genre-bending effort, till then at least, the album At the Edge of the World, which would see the band push their more rock-oriented sound, with some different stylistic crooning and callbacks to their industrial roots as well, really making for an interesting listen throughout. Although, as far as singles and such, not much was done, as again, it was basically self-released. And in my opinion, this is among their best. These tracks have a lot going on here.
Everything you try to say to me just falls upon me. It's all about me. Try to rob the cup.
In 2009, Jason Miller, now going by Jason Charles Miller, surprised us all. It always baffled me how this kind of music is the go-to hidden form of expression for former heavier artists, so to speak. This Americana, butt rock, country, what have yous, I don't know. It's all done well, I guess. I mean, technically well. And it's Jason Miller's voice, which is great. I've always enjoyed it. It's just, I don't know. It's not my style, I guess. I'll just say that much. It's not my style. But, mad respect either way. And it seems this is the way for Jason Charles Miller, as he has had a pretty long-standing solo career as of then, even owning and operating his own studio now. And to be honest, the dude has been a musician since he was a kid, and he's even been acting and voice acting since 1999. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Godhead thing could have been, just an overall act, if you will, as the dude does have a pretty, wide range of musical influences, and nobody can deny his talent.
Lost in the desert and can't find my way.
6 years later, a remix album was released called The Shadow Realigned, which had a new track, a few covers, and some remixes that were not very well received. Jason Miller would go on to keep doing country music, and even worked with Cleopatra Records for a lot of tribute albums and such. And he's also done original music in movies and for theme songs and TV shows, and he's an overall interesting dude. But as for Godhead, well, it seems it's all over. But upon looking back, I found a lot of their music to be more interesting and, kind of ahead of its time than I remember. You can always tell when a true artist is behind a band. And Miller kind of wore all of his influences on his sleeve back when, being David Bowie and Depeche Mode, etc. And it's kind of ironic that the band got its notoriety by having an album produced by Manson, to be the one album released on Marilyn Manson's label Posthuman. Miller has spoken on it before, and he basically said that Manson wasn't too involved and didn't really care much and didn't do much at all. And the events surrounding Marilyn Manson nowadays, it's probably best the partnership dissolved when it did and such, but I managed to find an article where Manson speaks on Posthuman Records and its short life. Yeah, Posthuman Records is gone now, but that was something that was never really Marilyn Manson oriented, because I'm signed to Interscope. Yeah, I found it unsatisfying because I don't like to try and manipulate somebody else's work into something that is marketable. For me, by nature, I create things I think people will like, but it's part of my motivation and it's not money driven. Success of reaching people is what drives it. Doing the label made me feel like people I don't like in a lot of ways. It was an interesting experience to try, but I don't think it's something that I wanted to do. Okay, whatever, dude. When it comes to oddball bands I was into in the early 2000s because Marilyn Manson's name was attached, I can go on and on. But I won't.